United Nations just issued sick ultimatum to whites in America after weeks of racist NFL protests. Over the past several weeks, the NFL protest has been all the mainstream media has talked about as, quote, oppressed black millionaires keep trying to demonize our country while complaining about the oppression they're forced to endure as blacks living in this country. After weeks of NFL protests, now the United Nations is interjecting themselves back into our politics, yet again making a sickening demand of all white people who live in the United States. While Obama was in office, he allowed the United Nations to start establishing a presence within American cities with a global police force sneaking his plot to give America's sovereignty away under the guise of an organization called the Strong Cities Network. This unconstitutional move was largely criticized by patriotic groups as the Constitution requires a treaty before allowing any foreign military presence to base itself on American soil. The Strong Cities Network, SCN, was launched by the United Nations back in September of 2015, providing the first ever global network of mayors and municipal level policymakers with the stated goal of providing a, quote, community to counter violent extremism in all its forms. Along with the United Nations' responsibility to protect doctrine, an enabling principle that allows an international community to intervene when they discover crimes being committed against humanity. The UN can take it upon themselves to safeguard any citizen who they view as being racially discriminated against. To put it in more simple terms, the UN can invade a country with their UN police force if they determine that crimes against humanity have occurred. Now, in an unbelievable power move, United Nations Human Rights Commissioners have ruled they've found alarming racism trends in our country and are threatening to intervene unless white Americans meet their demands and start paying blacks reparations for slavery, the Washington Post reports. The history of slavery in the United States justifies reparations for African Americans, argues a recent report by a UN-affiliated group based in Geneva. This conclusion was part of a study by the United Nations Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, a body that reports to the International Organization's High Commissioner on Human Rights. The group of experts, which includes a leading human rights lawyer from around the world, presented its findings to the United Nations Human Rights Council on Monday, pointing to the continuing link between present injustices and the dark chapters of American history. And it goes on and on. Human rights crisis that must be addressed as a matter of urgency. The dangerous ideology of white supremacy inhibits social cohesion amongst the U.S. population. Are they kidding me? The United Nations now appears to be taking up the cause of these NFL protesting athletes while making the ridiculous claim that there's currently a human rights crisis that must be addressed with a matter of, quote, urgency. Addressed how exactly? If the UN determines that crimes against humanity have occurred, how exactly do they plan to respond? That remains to be seen, but unfortunately, this isn't the first time in recent months the United Nations has attempted to pull a power move in our country. After the Charlottesville incident, Anastasia Crickley, chairwoman of UN committees on the elimination of racial discrimination, issued a warning to America on August 12, saying, "We are alarmed by the racist demonstrations with overtly racist slogans, chants, and salutes by white nationalists, neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan." Now, this is all Soros paid, and again, Obama now. Didn't he want to be the secretary of the UN? And he did this in 2015. That's why they bought all the guillotines and the FEMA camps were set up. Crickley is now getting the UN to undertake concrete measures against the United States. This is not the only a power move, but a huge insult for a corrupt organization such as the United Nations to start attacking our country and publicly calling us out. America has done more than any other country on earth to weed out racism and fight for human rights of others. Keep in mind the UN is perfectly fine with Christians being massacred by ISIS, Muslims having sex slaves, white genocide in Africa, and the horrifying treatment of women in the Middle Eastern countries. The notion that white people alive today should be forced to pay reparations for slavery that happened 200 years ago is beyond insane. Even if whites were to pay reparations for slavery that happened 200 years ago, how is it fair to demonize the entire white race when only 6% of Southerners even own slaves? I didn't even know that. If the United Nations truly cared about the cause of blacks, they'd be raising hell over the black-on-black crime statistics in this country, where the FBI revealed recently that 90% of blacks murdered were done so at the hands of other blacks. But as soon as there are several incidents of our police shooting armed thugs in our country, now there's suddenly a human rights crisis that the United Nations feels that white America must atone for. Give me a freaking break. Absolutely. But you know what? This kind of a scheme, this was set up also back in the day with Obama. Obama was up to something. I was like terrified. I thought he wasn't getting out of office because a lot of rumors were going around that he wasn't going to get out of office. And the FEMA camps and all these things that they were mentioning, and it was quite frightening. So I don't know what to say about this, but they have to go. The United Nations has to go because it's a criminal enterprise. It is not for the people because, as they stated, the Muslims with the women, the Christians being slaughtered. I mean, that's not anything. The police being killed, that's not an issue. But this is an issue? Slavery of 200 years ago? Are you kidding me? No, they have an agenda of some sorts. But this has got to stop. Somebody has to put a stop to this. But the globalists seem to be having a field day now, Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.